The summer sun beat down on the tarmac. And inside a crowded airplane cabin, whispers cut like knives. A man in a faded sweatshirt and scuffed boots sat quietly. His little girl clutching a stuffed toy by his side. To most passengers, he was nobody. Just another broke father trying to make it through the day. But before this flight landed, every soul on board would learn how wrong they were. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. The jet bridge felt like a hair dryer. Summer air from the Miami runway pushed into the cabin as passengers shuffled and sighed. Michael Carter stepped in last, carrying a scuffed duffel and his 7-year-old daughter sleeping against his shoulder. Her stuffed toy, a cat with stitched whiskers and a superhero cape, dangled by its tail. "Brave kitty stays buckled," he whispered. Sophie nodded solemnly. He wore work boots, a faded sweatshirt, and the calm of someone who had done harder things in worse places. The calm drew looks, the boots drew whispers. Across the aisle, a man in a linen blazer smirked to his companion. "Budget dad vacation," he said, loud enough to carry. Phone cameras tilted without shame. Seat 14C smiled from behind her mask. "I'm Rachel," she said. "If Brave Kitty needs a juice box for, I'm your ER nurse." Michael smiled back, grateful. Lace-edged kindness had more power than people admitted. As the plane pushed back, a voice from row 7 caught his ear. "Carter?" "No way." It was gone as soon as he turned, swallowed by safety briefings and clicking seatbelts. Sophie pressed her face to the window, leaving a crescent fog. "Is Miami as warm as Grandma's porch?" "Warmer," he said. "And it smells like oranges." He kept his voice light, the way fathers do when money is tight and you still promised the beach. Tires bumped, power rose, and the cabin tilted to sky. Somewhere behind them, the man in the blazer laughed at a meme about airport outfits. Michael fixed his eyes on the clouds, and on the small hand folded in his. 10 minutes after takeoff the seatbelt sign blinked off and with it the polite silence. The aisle hummed with elbows and opinions. Linen blazer guy ordered a drink and pointed his straw like an arrow. "Can we talk about 14DS boots? Did he hike here?" Rachel leaned toward Sophie. "Nurse secret, people who judge shoes get blisters first." Sophie giggled, and Michael's shoulders loosened. He was content to be nobody. Nobody was safer. Nobody didn't need to explain why a decorated file had ended with an exit stamp instead of a retirement ceremony. Then the second voice came, close now, a rasp of disbelief. "Carter. Mike Carter. Row 7, aisle." A man with a neat fade and a jaw set like a lock. His eyes flashed recognition, then something harder. He looked away as if burned. Michael's stomach tightened. He knew that profile, the clipped way the man folded a napkin. Bryce Kincaid. Squadron Operations Golden Boy. Also the signature at the bottom of a report that had tilted Michael's life off its axis. Rachel noticed the shift. "You okay?" "Just turbulence," he said. As if called, the plane shuddered. Somewhere up front, a chime. Then another, sharper, insisted upon. The flight attendants exchanged glances that said not now, not yet, but soon. Rachel's hand found the call button. "If the crew needs an extra set of hands, I can triage." She paused. "And you, Mr. Nobody?" Michael drew a long breath that smelled of coffee and aluminum and summer thunder. "Let's hope they don't." He checked Sophie's belt again. The sky rumbled back. At 31,000 feet the aircraft lurched like it had hit a pothole in the sky. Trays rattled, ice leapt in cups. A child cried, then two. The captain's voice cracked over the intercom, professional but urgent. "Folks, we're experiencing a hydraulic issue. Remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, please be seated." Flight attendant Mia didn't make it. The beverage cart jolted, pinning her shin. She gasped and bit back a cry. Rachel, Michael said, already unclipping. Permission to assist. A flight attendant grappled for a phone, eyes wide, then nodded. Old habit moved his hands. He braced the cart, slid Mia's leg free, and raised it onto a pillow of folded coats. Rachel checked pulses, pain, color, voice calm as summer rain. The chime sounded again, a purser hurried back with a headset. The cockpit is requesting anyone with emergency experience. Her gaze fell on Michael's steady movements. Sir. Michael met Sophie's eyes. She was brave, her chin set like her toys. I'll be right there. Count dolphins out the window. He lifted the interphone. The captain spoke fast, alternate checklists, degraded controls, runway options flashing by like towns on a map. I was told you're Major Carter. Former, he said. But muscle memory's sticky. We could use sticky. Michael turned to the aisle and raised his voice, not shouting, not pleading. Command. Everyone, listen up. We're going to land early. I'm coordinating with the crew. Help the person beside you. Secure loose items. Parents, check belts. The plane trembled again, but ears began to listen. Fear likes a leader. He would be that, for as long as the sky asked. Sophie unbuckled Brave Kitty's tiny cape and tied it around the wrist of a boy across the aisle who could not stop shaking. It makes you brave because you pretend, she said with solemn logic. The boy's mother mouthed thank you over her mask, tears washing clean tracks. Something shifted, less noise, more purpose. Michael watched it move row to row like a warm front, snacks handed across aisles, water shared, kids trading stickers for smiles. Rachel's voice threaded through it. If you're dizzy, lean forward. If you're panicking, breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. She checked on Mia again, then slipped to Michael's side. Vitals stable. How's the bird? Flying on borrowed hydraulics, he said. Captain's diverting to Jacksonville. Crosswinds and a chance the gear won't lock. He scanned faces. The linen blazer man glared at him over a plastic cup, unready to surrender his disdain. Rachel squeezed his forearm. You've got this. Only if we have this, he corrected, pitching his voice to the cabin. We're a crew now. Row 7 stood. Bryce Kincaid, now he was sure, looked like he had something to spit and couldn't decide if it was gum or confession. This guy's not a pilot, he snapped. Last time he gave orders, people got hurt. Heads turned. Sophie's fingers tightened in her father's sleeve. Michael didn't rise to it. Sir, please sit and belt. We'll debrief on the ground. Bryce held his stare a beat too long, then sat, jaw working. Rachel whispered, friend of yours? Not exactly, Michael said. More like an unanswered letter. The plane banked, and the ocean tilted its blue plate toward them. The intercom crackled. Cabin crew, prepare the cabin. Translation, make a city of strangers into a team. Michael moved row by row, assigning simple jobs. You, translate for the couple in 22F. You, help Rachel pass blood pressure cuffs. Everyone, put hard things under the seat, not in the overhead. If we stop short, we don't want rain from above. Linen Blazer scoffed. Who died and made you captain? Michael kept walking. Command isn't a costume. It's a promise. Bryce rose again, anger shaking the words loose. Tell them who you are. Tell them you got tossed out after that training mishap in Nevada. Tell them you lost a crewman. It punched the breath from Michael. The world narrowed, not to the memory of the explosion or the dust that tasted like coins, but to the signature beneath the report, Bryce Kincaid. Misapplied procedure. Operator error. Dismissal instead of medal. The truth had been a different shape, but truth can be bent by the right hands. Rachel's eyes flashed. Is this really your moment, man? Michael steadied himself on the seat back. Yes, he said as quietly as a hammer's last inch. I lost Staff Sergeant Dover. We all did. The inquiry needed a villain. I was convenient. A beat of silence rolled down the cabin. Then the plane shuddered again, angrier, longer. Oxygen masks quivered in their compartments. Michael lifted the interphone. Captain, status. Manual extension on the gear failed. We're going to try a gravity drop. Understood, Michael said. He faced the rows. Brace briefing in 3 minutes. He met Bryce's eyes. We'll land first. Then we talk. The sky, for now, had scheduled mercy later. The cabin lights dimmed to a bruise. Through small windows the Florida coast was a sheet of hammered silver. Michael demonstrated the brace position with the patience of a coach, then made nervous jokes about pretending to be cooked spaghetti, until even Linen Blazer cracked a grin. Rachel moved like a lighthouse, her voice a beam everyone leaned toward. She strapped Mia's splinted leg tight, then pressed the woman's hand. On the ground it'll hurt more, which means we're alive. Mid-briefing, the plane yawed and dropped. Masks didn't fall, but hearts did. A ripple of panic rose until Sophie's small voice cut it. 4, 4, 6, she breathed into her brave kitty, and a dozen people copied her. Bryce stumbled into the aisle and grabbed a bin to steady himself. He was pale, sweating, every bravado threadbare. Michael slid an arm under his. Sit, he said. Bryce resisted, then folded like paper. Panic attack. Rachel knelt on the other side, coaching breaths. Michael felt the muscle memory of triage return, the duty to help even the man who'd signed the wrong line. Between gasps Bryce rasped, I lied. They told me to. Later, Michael said. Breathe now. The intercom pinged. We have 2 greens, 1 red on the gear. Expect a rough arrival. The captain's comm was a steel cable threaded through a hurricane. Michael faced the cabin again. You've practiced. You know the plan. And I promise, whatever happens when those wheels touch, we will face it together. He wasn't preaching. He was remembering how men survive, shoulder by shoulder. Foam trucks crawled below, lights stuttered against cloud. The captain asked for cabin weight distributed aft. Michael recruited volunteers to trade seats, college kids in hoodies, a grandmother with the arms of someone who'd lifted generations, a businessman who finally looked at people instead of screens. They moved with purpose, and purpose rubbed the fear off. Linen Blazer raised his cup. To the man in the boots, he said, sheepish now, and passed his last bottle of water down the row like communion. Rachel briefed a handful of passengers as runner-helpers. If we evacuate, leave your bags. If someone freezes, talk them forward. No heroics. Real heroes follow instructions. Bryce sat breathing steadily for the first time, shame like a new burn on his face. He tugged Michael's sleeve. I leaked the training video to the press. They said it would help the case. It just fed the fire. You can write the truth now, Michael said. But first, help me count. He pressed a manifest into Bryce's hands. The man nodded, humbled, and began to move row by row, checking belts, asking names, doing the small holy work of seeing people. Sophie squeezed into Rachel's row for landing, brave Kitty switched wrists and missions. The boy across the aisle now watched her like a lighthouse. The final turn began, a slow, committed curve toward runway and consequence. Tires of other lives spun somewhere below. Michael set his watch. 30 seconds to brace practice. He looked over the cabin, 100 strangers, now a kind of family, and felt the old certainty settle. He had not needed a uniform to serve, he had needed a moment to be asked. Wind thumped the fuselage like a giant's heartbeat. The runway lights rose in twin rivers. Michael counted down for the cabin. Brace in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 100 bodies curled, hands over heads, feet planted for the future. He stayed tall, a metronome of voice. Hold. Breathe. Hold. Rachel's hand found Sophie's. Squeeze on my count, she whispered, and they rode the seconds together. The first touch felt like a punch through concrete. The second like a prayer catching. Then the left wing groaned, and sparks sketched orange comets past the windows. A will had kissed wrong. The cabin roared like a storm trapped in a metal shell. Michael shouted the words he'd taught 1,000 times. Heads down. Stay. Around him, people did not bolt, they trusted the plan more than the panic. The aircraft yawed, slowed, screamed, and finally shuddered into stillness. For a heartbeat nothing moved but breath. Then smell, hot rubber, chemical foam, the tin bite of adrenaline. Stay seated, Michael ordered, unbuckling as the crew assessed. The captain's voice came, tired and bright. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jacksonville. Fire crews are inspecting the gear. Please remain seated. A cheer rose, messy and honest. Linen Blazer was crying openly. The boy returned brave Kitty, then pushed the toy back to Sophie. You keep her, he sniffed. For the next kid. Rachel pressed her forehead briefly to Michael's shoulder. You bought us minutes. Minutes bought everything. He exhaled for what felt like the first time all summer. They deplaned by stairs into evening heat, the tarmac glowing like a stovetop. Fire engines idled like dinosaurs. At the bottom step, cameras waited. Stories harvest fast. Michael guided Sophie past microphones. He didn't need a headline. Beach, she reminded, as if the sky hadn't just tried to keep them. Bryce caught up in the shadow of a truck. His eyes were raw. I signed a lie, he said without dance. The brass wanted a scapegoat. I wanted a promotion. I told myself it didn't matter because you'd be fine. You were not fine. Michael looked at the man who had turned him into a cautionary tale. Anger is an easy road, forgiveness is a mountain with no trail. He lifted Sophie so her shoes wouldn't burn. Write the letter, he said. Name the names. Clear Dover's memory and my file. Don't do it for me. Do it because my kid needs to see what making it right looks like. Bryce swallowed hard. You'll testify. I'll tell the truth. Bryce nodded, as if the truth had finally found air to breathe. Rachel joined them, hair tugged by a forgiving wind. Ambulance is taking Mia. She'll be okay. She glanced between the men. Anything that needs a nurse. Michael managed a small smile. Just paperwork and pride. Sophie offered Bryce the corner of brave Kitty's cape to hold. He pinched it like a lifeline. Around them, passengers thanked one another, trading numbers, making plans to send postcards from the lives they still had. Fear had introduced them, grace taught them names. Hours later, on a replacement flight, the cabin was quiet with the reverence of people who had been given back their Tuesdays. Sophie slept with brave Kitty tucked under her chin and Rachel's denim jacket as a blanket. Through the window the Atlantic glowed a dark salt blue, forgiving and enormous. Michael studied the reflection that had been mocked for its boots and sweatshirt. He saw a man who had once believed value came stamped on a certificate. Today he had watched a different certificate get issued, seat by seat, signed by hands that passed water and courage. No rank required. Rachel's voice brushed his shoulder. You sure you're not secretly a nurse? Don't demote me like that, he said, smiling. I'm barely a dad. You're exactly a dad. She nodded at Sophie. And in case no one told you, you're allowed to be happy again. He considered how long grief had lived rent-free in his chest, and how forgiveness, of Bryce, of the system, of himself, might finally charge it back pay. The attendant announced they'd be landing in Miami at sunset. The sky beyond the wing was ablaze, peach, gold, one last flare before night. Michael touched Sophie's hair, then pulled out his phone. On its blank screen he drafted the first line of a letter to Dover's mother. He didn't write about the hydraulics or the runway. He wrote about a small stuffed cat, and how a child loaned courage to a plane full of adults. Fear had sneered at his boots. Dignity tied its cape and went to work. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.